Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another day, another album. It is a brand new day. Let's see what album we are talking about. RNG Machine. What do we got? Alright, so today we're getting spicy with one of the most divisive rappers of all time, and a personal favorite, Eminem. Now, I've had a long and storied history with Mr. Nem. I first got into Eminem around the time of Recovery's gigantic singles, back when they were ruling the radio waves in the early 2010s. And then from there, my dad got me into Eminem's classic material, such as the Marshall Mathers LP and the Eminem Show. I have been an Eminem fan arguably longer than I've even been a music fan. That being said, if you've been on this page for a while, you'll know I have no qualms with clowning much of his latest output, especially that one album. You know the album. All that to say, I have been an Eminem fan for a while, and while he is definitely not always cranking out his best material nowadays, I do think he's taking this late stage of his career to enjoy himself, and honestly, I don't think that's a bad thing for him, and I think he's overhated for having this attitude about this late stage of his career. Not Trying is quite the opposite of this album, however, as Kamikaze is a response to the poor reception of his truly worst album, Revival. And yes, it is his worst than Encore. Offended makes my brain bleed to this day. Your enjoyment of this album is going to depend on one main thing, and that is your existing feelings for Eminem. Critics didn't like it, but the entire album was also dissing them, so, I mean, fair. But for me, it is the most focused and collected Eminem has been in years, and the best body of work he's put out in the 2010s. That critic hate hits you square in the face with the first track, The Ringer, which is more of a rapped rant from Eminem about everything he sees wrong with the rap industry of current, or at least of current in 2018, how his art is viewed, and the state of hip-hop as a whole. I would honestly be hard-pressed to call this a good song, but as an Eminem fan, it was kind of fun to hear M back in attack mode. It's like a more angry version of listening to Drake, but instead of Drake's weak-ass half disses that may or may not subliminal shit, Eminem is at least bold enough to name names. And if nothing else, it's an accurate tone setter and opening for much of the subject matter of the rest of the album. Greatest at the very least picks up the energy and sees Eminem take a trip down Slim Shady's past. It's weird to hear M drop producer taglines since, at least up to this point, he's been known for producing much of his own music, but Mike Will Made It did give Eminem a zany beat to match a more classic Slim poking and prodding of the industry. The lyrics are cartoonishly absurd, mixing almost random word associations with speedy wordplay to establish why he should be considered the greatest. The hook is one of Eminem's better ones. It sounds like something he'd be putting out around the time of the Eminem Show. The hook is solid and self-aware of the fact that 99% of white rappers nowadays are trying to be him. Most of them forget the most important part though, which is to not be racist. Come on guys, do better. Lucky used sees Eminem link with one of his most devoted offspring, Joyner Lucas, back when he was actually cool, for a speedy rap banger. I think if any song can be said to have aged well from this project, I think this is it. Joyner doesn't drop any complete lyrical duds. The chorus feels very modern for Eminem with an almost trap sound. Eminem himself is also actually self-aware lyrically. He acknowledges that he took an L on the previous album Revival, which is probably the nicest way to put it. I mean, come on, offended, but comes back with enough energy to show how much of an improvement this is compared to anything from the previous project. Not lyrically the deepest, but a great showcase for both talents and an absolute banger. Paul brings back a classic Eminem interlude motif with his calls between him and his lawyer/manager, Paul Rosenberg, dating all the way back to the Slim Shady LP back in 1999. This edition isn't quite to that caliber though, as it's mainly Paul harping on why in the hell M would go to make an album as a response to the revival, and show how this would all snowball worse and worse as albums pile on into each other. These are all relevant arguments. Normal is probably the most forgettable song on the album, and it's not just because of all people Eminem decides to get into his Drake bag. M's singing voice has rarely been a highlight, and this song is no exception. Lyrically, the song is nothing new for M either, taking a break from his shots at critics to talk about a dysfunctional relationship in all the morbid details that he has always been known for. It's nowhere near as melodramatic as some of his, I'm gonna put him in quotes, classics in the topic, such as Love the Way You Lie or Spacebound, but this song's not going for that. But honestly, maybe it should have, especially for what the next track is. Well, I guess next song, as the next track is the response to the Paul skit with Eminem responding to Paul as he pulls up to some online hater's house. I think this showcases a major difference between Eminem today and Eminem back in the day. We all know the fucked up things Shady has talked about doing to people, to haters. Think of that Ken Kniff skit. But here, M's just mad at some rando and is gonna beat him up. It's nowhere near as cartoony and memorable as something like Role Model, for example. Stepping Stones is a cut for the Eminem diehards, who were truly the only people wondering what happened to M's collective D12. It's cool as a fan to get his perspective on the matter, and he gets self-aware once again in admitting that he isn't charting as high as he used to, and that careers can't be built off of him anymore. But if you don't give a shit about any of this, you're not listening through that horribly sung bridge. Seriously, that bridge is a fucking nightmare. Not Alike sees a pickup in the album with the classic Take Keith producer tag and some trap hats. The hook feels like Eminem taking a cue from Young Thug with his triplet chorus, and honestly, it's not that bad. I hate to say it, but it really could have been worse. And this track also serves as a Bad Meets Evil reunion, as Royce da 5'9" takes the first verse of the song and kicks some really solid bars. I really like the money wordplay with Bitcoin and nickels. Eminem starts his verse solid, much like Royce's before, an amazing beat switch, and M takes extreme lyrical focus on Machine Gun Kelly. We all know what would come of this, as after a mediocre response from MGK with Rap Devil and a diss track from Eminem, Killshot, that was so good that MGK would find his true calling creeping on teenage girls and pop punk. Rap fans, don't laugh too hard though. Your boy Drake's been on that wave for a while. Don't be surprised when he goes down on that boat. The title track is almost classic Slim Shady, as a collection of Eminem ad-libs zig and zag around as M begins turning the cartoon to 11 with lines like "wedgie in my underwear," "the whole bedsheet in the comforter," "stuck up in my rectal crack," "kiss my disrespectful ass." Classic Slim shit right there. And that energy carries into the zany chorus referencing his biggest, worst song in the world, Fack. Dear God, Fack. My favorite part of the song is the ending where the beat change comes in and M actually sounds like he's just freestyling off the top in the studio. It's honestly some great stuff and a real highlight on the album. Fall is one of Eminem's most controversial songs, arguably the most representative of the album as a whole, and in classic Myra Hot Take, my favorite Eminem song of the last 10 years. Yeah, I know. I'll talk about it. This song really works for me as an Eminem fan. While M poking fun at celebrities was always a classic move, I always personally enjoyed Eminem at his best when he gets focused and starts naming names and checking off boxes and shit. And oh boy, does this song have names named. Joe Budden, the Grammys, Charlemagne the God, DJ Academics, and especially Lord Jamar, who I think receives the best lines on the album and the most fitting criticisms. Like it or not, Eminem has too big of a spot to not be written into rap history. As he says in the song, he brought the world 50 Cent. and inspired greats like Kendrick and Cole to cornballs like Hobson and Logic. Of course, there are the disses towards Tyler, the Creator, and Earl Sweatshirt, the latter of which is pretty weak with some hooded sweatshirt wordplay, and that's really taking a liberal use of the word wordplay, and calling Tyler, an openly bisexual man, a faggot. Is it wrong and stupid? Yep, I can't think of any better descriptor of classic Eminem than that. I don't like it here, and neither would Eminem ultimately, but that's nothing new for him. Even with all that, the confident delivery and solid wordplay that makes up most of the track truly gives the song the most replay value for me. That third verse in particular gives me Rabbit Run vibes, and I love hearing Eminem rap like the rent is due and he is keeping his spot. The next two tracks, Nice Guy and Good Guy, see Eminem go back into toxic relationship territory with R&B singer Jessie Reyez. Nice Guy is a absolutely horrible sounding song in itself, but it really shows the ugliness of the violence between the couple. It's an interesting listen, but it has the same entertainment value of We Cry Together, which is little to none for me. Good Guy sees Eminem get more into the melodramatic and emotional side of the relationship, sounding more in line with previous overdramatic hits such as Love the Way You Lie and such mentioned earlier. Honestly, the beat is the only thing I really like about the song. It sounds like it's sampling one of like the early Portal games, maybe Still Alive a little bit in there, or that ending vocal part of Portal 2. Venom is a part of the soundtrack for the 2018 film of the same name, so it has no place being on the album in my fucking dreams. But it's the final track, and this song is everything wrong with modern Eminem, from the super cut short flows and melodramatic beat, and dear God, that motherfucking chorus. This song has no business being on this album. Good Guy is such a better ending, and I think if this song weren't on the album, I think this album as a whole would be remembered a lot more fondly. Kamikaze is an album for Eminem fans, and for them, it sees Eminem gain a level of lyrical focus and songwriting that had been lacking in much of his recent work of the time. To anyone else, this album came off as whiny, insecure, and the musical equivalent of an old man yelling at the sun for setting, and in many ways, I do get why. As a fan though, I just wish M had continued to rap like he had on this album, like he had something to prove. But Eminem is pretty content to just do what he does, and while it doesn't always make the best music, why are we asking for the golden years of Eminem 30 years into his career? Honestly, let the man enjoy the rest of his life. He's made his classics. Kamikaze is a 7 out of 10 and currently sits at number 184 on the list. Be sure to let me know your favorite Eminem track in the comments, and I'll see y'all for the next review. Pieces.